Daddy, why do you look sad when you win? LeBron James froze when his 9-year-old son Bronny asked him that question after winning the 2014 NBA Finals. They were sitting in the locker room, confetti still falling around them, teammates celebrating in the background, but Bronny was right. LeBron wasn't celebrating. The king of basketball had just won his second championship with the Miami Heat. He should have been on top of the world. Instead, he was staring at the championship trophy like it was mocking him. That innocent question from his son revealed a painful truth LeBron had been hiding for 4 years. Miami had given him championships, but it had taken something far more valuable in return. Something that no amount of rings could ever replace. Have you ever achieved everything you thought you wanted, only to realize it felt completely empty? Have you ever wondered what success really costs when you get it the wrong way? Let me take you inside the most painful decision in NBA history. Because what really happened in Miami wasn't about basketball. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about championships. It was about a man who discovered that winning without your soul isn't winning at all. Nobody expected LeBron James to leave Miami in 2014. He was 29 years old, in his prime, playing with his best friends Dwyane Wade and Chris Bosh. They had just reached 4 straight NBA Finals and won 2 championships. From the outside, it looked like paradise. But paradise can be a prison when you're living someone else's dream. The story everyone knows is simple. LeBron left Miami to go home to Cleveland and fulfill his promise to bring a championship to his hometown. That's what ESPN reported. That's what the newspapers wrote. That's what LeBron himself said in his famous Sports Illustrated letter. But that's not the real story. The real story began 4 years earlier, on July 8, 2010, when LeBron made the decision to join the Miami Heat. What nobody knew then was that LeBron had also made another decision that same night, a promise to himself that would eventually tear him apart. See, when LeBron left Cleveland the first time, he wasn't just leaving a team. He was abandoning everything he had ever believed about loyalty, family, and what it meant to be a champion. The guilt started immediately, but LeBron buried it deep, telling himself that rings would make it all worthwhile. For 4 years, he tried to convince himself that Miami was home. He bought a mansion. He built relationships. He won championships. But every night, when the cameras stopped rolling and the crowd noise faded, LeBron would lie awake staring at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in his own life. And then his 9-year-old son asked the question that would change everything forever. LeBron knelt down to his son's eye level, the championship trophy sitting cold and lifeless beside them. For a moment, he considered telling Bronny the truth, that winning in Miami felt like wearing someone else's clothes, that every championship celebration felt like he was acting in a movie about someone else's life. Instead, he just hugged his son tighter and whispered, "Sometimes winning isn't everything, little man." But Bronny wasn't satisfied. He pulled back and looked directly into his father's eyes with that brutal honesty only children possess. "But you always told me winning was the most important thing." That's when LeBron realized his son had caught him in the contradiction that had been eating him alive for 4 years. He had built his entire career around the idea that championships were everything. But here he was, holding his second Miami championship, feeling more empty than ever. The truth was, LeBron had never truly connected with Miami. Not the city, not the culture, not even his teammates the way everyone thought he had. Sure, he was friends with Dwyane Wade and Chris Bosh, but friendship and brotherhood are 2 different things. In Cleveland, his teammates weren't just colleagues, they were family who would bleed for each other. In Miami, everything felt calculated, manufactured. Even their famous Big Three chemistry was more about talent than genuine connection. They could execute plays together, but they couldn't finish each other's sentences. They could win games together, but they couldn't share silence comfortably. The breaking point had been building for months. During the 2014 season, LeBron started having what he later described as identity crisis moments. He would catch himself in the mirror wearing a Heat jersey and feel like he was looking at a stranger. He would hear the Miami crowd chanting his name and feel disconnected from the sound. But the real breaking point came during a team dinner in March 2014. LeBron was sitting at a table with Wade and Bosh, listening to them laugh about inside jokes he didn't understand, talking about Miami memories he wasn't part of. That's when it hit him. He was an outsider trying to fit into someone else's story. Wade noticed LeBron's silence. "You good, bro?" he asked. LeBron forced a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about the playoffs." But he wasn't thinking about playoffs. He was thinking about a conversation he'd had with his mother Gloria 3 weeks earlier. She had flown to Miami to visit, and after watching him play, she pulled him aside. "Baby, you don't smile the same way anymore," she said quietly. "When you won that championship in Miami the first time, you looked relieved, not happy. That's not how champions are supposed to feel." His mother was right. Every success in Miami felt like checking off a box rather than fulfilling a dream. He was winning championships, but he wasn't building a legacy. He was just completing someone else's vision of what his legacy should be. That night, alone in his mansion, LeBron finally admitted the truth to himself. Miami had given him everything except the one thing that mattered most: the feeling that he belonged. The phone call came at 2:17 a.m. on June 22, 2014, just 3 days after that championship celebration with Bronny. LeBron was sitting on his mansion balcony, unable to sleep, when his phone buzzed. The caller ID showed a Cleveland number he hadn't seen in 4 years. It was his old high school coach, Drew Joyce II. "LeBron, I know it's late, but I had to call you." Coach Drew's voice was shaking. "I just got back from the hospital. Do you remember Mrs. Patterson?" LeBron's heart dropped. Mrs. Patterson was his elementary school secretary who used to sneak him extra lunch when his family couldn't afford it. She was the woman who believed in him when nobody else did. "She's dying, LeBron. Cancer. But she asked me to tell you something before." Coach Drew's voice broke. She said, "Tell that boy he needs to come home. Not for basketball. Not for championships. For his soul." LeBron sat in stunned silence as Coach Drew continued. "She said she watches every game, and she can see it in your eyes. You're not happy, son. You're successful, but you're not happy." That phone call shattered the last wall LeBron had built around his heart. Mrs. Patterson, a dying woman who barely knew him personally, could see what he had been trying to hide from the world. That success without authenticity is just sophisticated suffering. The next morning, LeBron did something he hadn't done in 4 years. He drove to the beach alone. No security, no entourage, just him and his thoughts. He sat on the sand and finally allowed himself to feel everything he had been suppressing. The guilt of leaving Cleveland. The emptiness of winning in Miami. The fear that he had sold his soul for championships. The crushing weight of living a lie for 4 years. But most importantly, he felt something else. Clarity. For the first time since the decision, LeBron knew exactly what he had to do. Not what his agents wanted. Not what the media expected. Not what would make the most money. What his heart was screaming for him to do. He pulled out his phone and called the one person who would understand. His mother. "Mama, I need to come home," he said simply. Gloria James didn't ask questions. She knew. "Baby, home is always here waiting for you." That afternoon, LeBron called a meeting with his closest advisors. When he walked into the room, everyone expected to discuss contract negotiations with Miami. Instead, LeBron made an announcement that shocked everyone. "I'm going back to Cleveland. Not because it makes business sense. Not because it's the smart move. Because it's the right move." His agent Rich Paul looked confused. LeBron, we haven't even heard Miami's offer yet. They're talking about the biggest contract in NBA history. LeBron shook his head. Rich, some things are more valuable than money. Some things are more important than winning. I need to go home and face what I left behind. What LeBron didn't tell anyone in that room was that he had already started writing his letter to Cleveland fans in his head. Not a PR statement, but a real apology. A confession. A promise to make things right. The decision was made. Now came the hardest part, telling Miami he was leaving. The meeting with Pat Riley was scheduled for July 9th at 8 p.m. LeBron walked into the Heat president's office knowing it would be the most difficult conversation of his career. Riley was confident, almost cocky. He had prepared a presentation about Miami's future, championship projections, and a contract offer that would make LeBron the highest paid player in NBA history. But LeBron wasn't there to negotiate. Pat, I need to tell you something. LeBron began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. I'm going back to Cleveland. Riley's face dropped. For the first time since LeBron had known him, the legendary executive looked genuinely shocked. He set down his presentation folder and leaned back in his chair, studying LeBron's face as if searching for signs that this was some kind of negotiation tactic. LeBron, let's talk about this. Miami is your home now. We've built something special here. Don't throw it all away for sentiment. But LeBron shook his head. Pat, with all due respect, Miami was never my home. It was a place I came to win championships, and we did that. But I never belonged here. I was just visiting. Riley's demeanor shifted. The smooth executive facade cracked, revealing genuine frustration. You're talking crazy, LeBron. Look around this office. Look at those championship banners. We built a dynasty together. You, Wade, Bosh, your family here. No, Pat, LeBron's voice grew stronger. Wade and Bosh are family here. I was always the outsider trying to fit in. You know it, I know it, and deep down they know it too. I spent 4 years pretending that was enough, but it never was. Riley leaned forward, his voice becoming more intense. You're making the biggest mistake of your career. Cleveland is a losing organization. They'll waste your prime years. You'll regret this decision for the rest of your life. LeBron looked Riley directly in the eyes. Pat, you're talking about basketball. I'm talking about life. For 4 years, I've been living someone else's dream. I forgot who I was. I forgot where I came from. I forgot what really matters. He paused, thinking about Bronny's question just weeks earlier. My son asked me why I look sad when I win. A 9-year-old could see what I've been trying to hide from myself. Winning championships doesn't mean anything if you lose yourself in the process. Riley sat back, realizing this wasn't about money or basketball anymore. His voice softened slightly. What are you really saying, LeBron? I'm saying that coming to Miami taught me something I never expected to learn. Sometimes you have to leave home to understand what home really means. Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find yourself. And sometimes the hardest decision is admitting you were wrong. Riley made one final attempt. LeBron, think about your legacy. You could win 5 championships here. 6. You could be remembered as the greatest Heat player of all time. LeBron smiled sadly. Pat, I don't want to be remembered as the greatest Heat player. I want to be remembered as someone who came home and kept his promise. I want my kids to know their father as someone who made mistakes but had the courage to fix them. LeBron stood up, extending his hand to Riley. Thank you for everything, Pat. Miami gave me championships, but Cleveland gave me my identity, and I'm ready to go back and earn both. Riley reluctantly shook LeBron's hand, knowing this was really goodbye. I hope you know what you're doing, LeBron. For the first time in 4 years, I do. 3 hours later, LeBron was on his private jet to Cleveland. As the plane lifted off from Miami, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 4 years: peace. He pulled out his laptop and began typing the letter that would shock the sports world, each word flowing from his heart rather than from a PR team. He thought about Mrs. Patterson, fighting cancer, but still caring enough to send him a message about his soul. He thought about his mother's words, "Home is always here waiting for you." He thought about Bronny's innocent question that changed everything. When the plane touched down in Cleveland at midnight, LeBron's phone buzzed with a text from his son. "Daddy, you look happy again." For the first time in 4 years, LeBron James smiled, and meant it. The real reason LeBron left Miami wasn't about basketball, money, or even championships. It was about a man who had to lose himself to find himself, who had to leave home to understand what home really meant, and who learned that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is admit you were wrong and try to make it right. That's the story nobody tells. That's the truth behind the decision that changed everything.